Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast, State of the Balance, this time for June 2017. Yes, indeed, and how does June look like, you wonder? Well, overall, there's been some changes to the metagame. There's obviously been nothing balance-wise happening, so in that regard, nothing's really happening. But a bit sort of metagame-wise, there are some changes. Obviously, the Brits, as usual, don't really change much. And with the Oberkommando, there's not really much any changes there. For the Americans, the Soviets, and the Wehrmacht, there's been some changes to the metagame, actually. Some changes to the metagame, how they approach sort of what they do. And in particular, the Soviets, there's sort of been some slightly large movements here and there. I mean, overall with the Soviets, you know, again, it's slightly moving away from old penal, so there's still a lot of goes forward. Lend-Lease is still very popular. And overall, long-term Lend-Lease probably still needs to nerf slightly to the Diska. And also slightly to the M4C Sherman Army, making it a bit harder to just call in easily. Probably tying it to tech, I think, would be the right idea. Maybe slightly taking some of its veterancy. Beyond that, though, again, penal troops also need a slight nerf, most because at this point, no people don't even bother with guardsmen, despite guards are still going to be pretty good. So I think in that sense, the penal troops have been made slightly too good. I probably should look at their received accuracy just to make them a bit easier to kill in that sense, maybe. Beyond that, I think the Serbs are on a good spot. Again, it's just a few units sort of overperforming and also doctrines that way, just causing sort of a huge, you know, well, things just really getting the same because there's just not much point. I mean, again, the rest is still pretty good. It's just penal troops and Lend-Lease tanks is just even better. And again, that can, you know, lead to a slightly warped metagame. But it's still, it's not like, you know, it's all going for it. Again, there's a lot of T-34s because the T-34 is also pretty good. So, I mean, it's not all that, but it's still a bit, you know, dominant in that sense as well. So that could probably do some slight changes. For the Americans, there's a slight decrease in people just going for Pershings. There's more Shermans, Scots, tank destroyers in that regard. Things are slightly broadening out, also more airborne again. We're seeing more players, you know, actually playing the Americans to a large degree. Grenades have also really caught on with the Americans. Grenades, you know, barely anyone used grenades to the point, but now all of a sudden everybody's using grenades again. So in that regard, there's happening larger changes with the American metagame as well. Again, they're sort of branching out more. Again, the Stuarts sort of changed. They're sort of, it's slowly happening, but still, again, they're sort of happening now more and more sort of different strategies, different styles of play with the Americans, and that's also good. Again, that sort of indicates, again, we're sort of moving towards, I think, a good spot with the Americans when, you know, again, there's just more room for them to actually do things. At least there's encouragement for them to do it, part because, again, they just not can easily just get away with your Stuarts into Pershings like they could before the nerf. So that is also good. I still think years of mortar still need to nerf. It's still pretty much just, you know, leaving the pack howitzer not with actual because it's still really accurate and really cheap and easy to get in comparison to the pack howitzer. So in that regard, the use of mortar still needs an accuracy nerf. Give it to the range back. I don't care. Just nerf its accuracy. That's really the main issue with the use of mortar. And I don't know who thought it was the range that was the issue and not the bloody accuracy of the monster. So that's a bit of a change. But again, there's with the American meta, it's more lieutenant based now. Some still go for captain and the student is still reasonably good. But again, it's just not the overpowering monstrosity it used to be. So now you got the metagame there, sort of just again slightly changed out. More lieutenants, more 50 calibers, more grenades, but still some go for the captain, the steward. And again, there's more Shermans, more Jacksons, more M10s. I mean, there's a lot more things now going for it. So the American player is also now harder to predict, which is to their advantage. And finally, moving on to the Brits. The Brits is basically, well, most of the stuff really has been happening. I mean, there's some slight grenade users there to sort of realise, you know, the Americans are doing it, so they're slightly trying to move towards it there as well. But overall, it's still, you know, a lot of sections, some Vickers, emplacements, Cromwells, maybe a Comet, maybe a Churchill, otherwise, you know, commandos, usually the infiltration kind. I mean, there's not really been any sort of huge changes there. I mean, part of things just the emplacements need to have their sort of embrace bit they're looked onto us. I think it just makes them too good in many cases. And particularly on the smaller maps, again, it causes a problem and it can have a disproportionate effect. So really, they need to look into the brace of the emplacements or do something else about them. But I also think there needs to be some looks at the Brits here and there as well. Again, there's still bits where they sort of overperform. And I think to an extent what they probably need to look at is just make some of the tech slightly more expensive. To an extent there for the Brits. But I mean, it's a bit hard to say that because, again, they just, you know, there's not really much happening. They're sort of still using all the same strategies. I'd probably also recommend the infiltration commanders lose their submachine guns at the start instead have to upgrade for the Sten guns, just giving them some rifles of some sort. That way they can just be, you know, let's just, you know, pop in right there, making overall mobile assault less just, you know, obviously good. Beyond that, it's a bit hard to say what the Brits is with there. Again, it's just so very much the same thing. Makes it a bit harder to pinpoint what the sort of the more specific issues are with them. Makes it a bit hard to say there, but I'm probably still looking at the bits there. overall, again, regarding the emplacements, particularly the mortar emplacement feels like still very disproportionately nasty. Otherwise, I mean, not so much else to say. Again, look at the emplacement first, then we can sort of take a look at the rest of the British, I think, at that stage. Moving onwards to the Axis, I mean, for the Oberkommando West, again, there's not really been a lot of changes either. I mean, doctrine is very much largely the same thing. Command Panthers still, I think, require a larger amount of CPs than they do. I mean, just moving to 11 seems quite frankly silly. It should at least be at the same level as a Tiger tank or something like that. So in that regard, the Command Panther change that really didn't amount to much for the Oberkommando West. It was really much just a no real change thing. So that's definitely something that needs to be looked at. But overall, there's just not much there. I mean, they probably need to have a look into some of the veterans bonus, in particular the Fulton Grenadiers, less received accuracy. In that sense, there needs to be some, well, slight changes there. Also, probably some abilities being snug in there, so there's sort of a bit more usage with them when they hit that higher levels of veterancy. But beyond that, also the MD-34 needs looking at. It's sort of in a weird position, I feel, but it's not really that good against blobs or sort of anything there. So you have to kind of go for it at times, but at the same time, it's not really that good. So I think it needs looking into in some way there. Just maybe slightly increased accuracy or suppression, but it needs something extra than currently what it has. It's sort of getting in one of those weird spots, to be honest. And I still feel like they should just replace the Kednev with a Pack 40 at this stage. So the Kednev just sort of feels like a weird fit for the Oberkommando and just sort of leads to some really cheesy things. So long term, I think they just need to drop the Kednev and replace it with a Pack 40, to be honest. Otherwise, I think it's sort of largely just a degree of accuracy sort of or veterancy overhaul for the Oberkommando that is needed on a lot of the levels there. To sort of fix things out, particularly like the Sturm Pioneers, the veterans got a bit faster. Maybe get access to the better abilities faster as well. I mean, some changes I think could do a lot for the Oberkommando West. But also, I think they need to replace the infrared half-track with a regular half-track that can be upgraded into the infrared half-track. They also need to then drop the ability to reinforce from the Battle Group headquarters. As they can leave that to the regular half-track. So again, that way there's more options, more room for tactics and strategy there for the Oberkommandos, because currently again, they're to a large extent just locked into sort of a very small, set there, and the flak half-track still needs a buff. Beyond that, though, it's a bit hard to say. We'll of course have to see there once, any sort of changes happen to them before we're sort of taking any further there. As to the Wehrmacht, they're sort of in a good position. We're seeing it over against slight increase in strategies and tactics. Again, there's more aggressive strategies from them, more rush strategies, tier 3 rushes, tier 4 rushes. Tier 4 is actually a thing happening with the Wehrmacht now. We see Panthers on a more regular basis. We see Sturmpanzers. I mean, that's a good start though for the Wehrmacht. That's really a good thing. So again, in that sense, the Wehrmacht is looking, pretty reasonable. Doctrinally, it's lightning wards, mechanized assault to an extent. It's less than just playing straight for a Tiger, which is also good. Again, it means partly there's less rush for it, but of course also there's more room to try and expand into other strategies. So I mean, that's good for the Wehrmacht. That is very good for them. So in that regard, you have to be a bit more careful what they can do. 2-2s happen, Panzer Grenadiers happen, Grenadiers happen, Snipers happen, Mortars happen. I mean, a lot of things happens. I mean, that guy, that's pretty good. It's more not just you have to learn how not to just focus on the center, like a bee trying to break through a glass wall, or window. It's not really going to happen. And similarly, again, they tend to have some issues with just focusing on the center, conceding most of the map, and more importantly, the fuel, which is really important for the Wehrmacht. But still, I mean, there's more room for it. Part of me still would like to see some kind of Knights Crossholder-like unit for the Wehrmacht at tier 4, like the Heavy Panzer Corps, but beyond that, though, it's a lot hard to say. I'm not really sort of keen on just implementing a lot of other changes for the Wehrmacht now, since again, I'd at least wait another month to get an idea of things there. Because again, they sort of feel like they're in a decent position. Again, they got more room now for tactics and strategies. Plus, watching, for example, Armstrong just win a lot of matches, just going for an awful lot of Grenadiers, playing very aggressively, just dominating his opponent. He also went for tier 3. I mean, certainly, also makes you think there might be something that could be looked down into there with the Grenadiers, to be honest. Maybe some slight nerf somewhere to the Grenadiers, or maybe just make them slightly more expensive, to be honest, as well. So there are some thoughts there as well. But overall, I mean, in some ways, again, the meta is certainly a lot more varied. It's been like a month or two ago, but there's also plenty of room to go with, I think, primarily the Brits and the Oberkommando West. The Americans are sort of going things now, so I don't want to touch them much, but really, it's the Oberkommando West and the Brits right now. I think they need, if a package to them, there needs to be sort of like seriously looked at the moment. I think they're sort of the two problem children at the moment. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this state of the balance, got some ideas from it, maybe learned some things from it. If you subscribe, like, share, and comment on it. If this is Imperial Lensing, cheers. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you all tomorrow for another episode, of course, and next month for another state of the balance. Cheers, everybody.